Right now, as you are watching this, a massive weather pattern flip is unfolding across the United States. And I need you to pay very close attention because what is about to happen in the next 7 to 10 days will shock millions of Americans. We are talking about a swing from record-breaking cold, with freeze warnings stretching all the way down to Florida, to a monster heat wave that could send temperatures soaring into the 90s and even the hundreds across parts of the country. This is mid-March, not June, not July. Mid-March. And that is not even the biggest story. There is a potential severe weather outbreak brewing for late March that could impact tens of millions of people. So here is my promise to you. In the next few minutes, I am going to break down exactly what is coming city by city, state by state for more than 270 locations across America. I will give you the exact timing of when storms hit your area, when they peak, and when they end. And if you stay with me until about the 5-minute mark, I am going to reveal the specific dates that our next big storm system could bring dangerous, severe weather back to the heartland. But first, drop a comment right now telling me where you are watching from. Your city, your state. I want to make sure I cover your area in detail, and trust me, you are going to want to hear what is coming for your region. Now let me hit you with something that will make your jaw drop. Over the last 48 to 72 hours, the United States just experienced one of the most dramatic storm systems of the entire season. We had a historic blizzard to the north. Parts of Wisconsin and Michigan buried under 30 to 40 inches of snow. 40 inches. That is over 3 feet of snow in the middle of March. At the same time, to the south, we had a confirmed tornado outbreak. 21 confirmed tornadoes between March 15th and March 16th. Damaging winds were widespread from St. Louis all the way through Arkansas, northern Alabama, and eventually slamming into the Washington, D.C. area, New Jersey, and Delaware late at night. And here is what makes this even crazier. After all of that severe weather pushed through, snow developed as far south as northern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. Huntsville, Alabama picked up over 1 inch of snow. Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, Alabama saw snowflakes. Even Atlanta, Georgia had snow falling from the sky in mid-March. Let that sink in for a moment. But here is the twist that nobody saw coming. That severe weather outbreak on Sunday, it actually underperformed. The Storm Prediction Center had been sounding the alarm for days. Meteorologists across the country were bracing for a potentially catastrophic event. And while it was still significant with 21 tornadoes and widespread damaging winds, it could have been so much worse. The fail mode was too much morning convection. Too much storm activity early in the day ate up the atmospheric energy before the main event could fully develop. So the atmosphere basically exhausted itself before the worst could unfold. That is actually great news. But it also carries a warning that I need you to hear. Just because this one underperformed does not mean the next one will. And there is a next one coming. I will tell you exactly when in just a moment. Do not skip ahead. The timing details are critical. Now here is where things get absolutely wild. As of this morning, freeze warnings are in effect across an enormous stretch of the country. Look at this. The freezing line has pushed all the way down into Florida. Mobile, Alabama is under a freeze warning. New Orleans, Louisiana is under a freeze warning. Central Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina are all dealing with temperatures at or below freezing. We are in the middle of March and we have freeze conditions stretching from the Canadian border all the way to the Gulf Coast. This is shocking. This is the kind of cold blast that you might expect in January, not in the third week of March. And get this. At the exact same time that the eastern half of the country is shivering through this late-season Arctic blast, the western United States is already baking. Phoenix, Arizona is approaching 100 degrees. Areas just east of Los Angeles are flirting with triple digits. Las Vegas could hit 100 degrees this week. 100 degrees in Las Vegas in March. That is the kind of temperature you would expect in late May or June. We are running well ahead of schedule in the desert Southwest, and the numbers are only going to get more extreme over the next several days. So what we have right now is one of the most dramatic temperature contrasts in recent memory. You could be in the teens and 20s in the Midwest this morning dealing with wind chills that make it feel like deep winter. And just a few states to the west, people are cranking up their air conditioning and reaching for sunscreen. The difference between these two air masses is staggering. And when these two air masses eventually collide, that is when things could get very dangerous. But we will get to that. First, Let me walk you through exactly what is happening over the next several days because the timing on this is everything. Let me explain the jet stream setup because understanding this will help you understand everything that follows. Right now, the jet stream has a massive dip called a trough over the eastern United States. This trough is like a river of cold air plunging southward from Canada all the way to the Gulf Coast. That is why Florida has freeze warnings. That is why Alabama had snow. The cold air is being funneled straight down from the Arctic along this trough. At the same time, over the western United States, the jet stream has a massive bulge northward called a ridge. This ridge is essentially a dome of high pressure that is trapping warm air and preventing it from escaping. Think of it as a giant lid sitting over the west, compressing warm air downward and heating it even further. This is why Phoenix is hitting 100 degrees. This is why Las Vegas is approaching triple digits. The ridge is acting like a pressure cooker, intensifying the heat day after day. Now here is the key. Over the next 5 to 7 days, this pattern is going to shift. The trough over the east is going to weaken and slide off the coast. The ridge over the west is going to expand eastward, pushing that wall of warm air across the Rockies and into the plains. And when that happens, temperatures across the central United States are going to explode upward. Cities that are in the 20s today will be in the 70s and 80s by Friday. That is not an exaggeration. That is what the models are unanimously showing. But the ridge cannot hold forever. By the middle of next week, it starts to break down. And when a ridge collapses, it creates an opening for storm systems to punch through. That is exactly what the models are forecasting around March 25th through the 27th. A new storm system dives through the weakening ridge, taps into all of that warm, moist air that has been building up across the plains, and explosive thunderstorm development becomes possible. This is weather physics at its most dramatic. All right, here is your day-by-day breakdown, and this is the part you absolutely cannot miss. Today, Tuesday, we still have that Arctic air firmly in control across most of the eastern United States. Snow showers are possible as far south as Tennessee this morning. The Ohio Valley is dealing with a blustery, cold, snowy day. Snow squalls are firing across Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and northern Kentucky. Lake effect and lake-enhanced snow is cranking off the Great Lakes. Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, all of them are pumping out snow bands into downwind areas. If you are in Buffalo, Erie, Cleveland, Detroit, or anywhere in the Great Lakes region, you are going to see bursts of snow throughout the day. Even the New York City and Boston areas could see some snow showers and flurries by this evening. Down in the southeast, it is a brutally cold day for mid-March standards. Even Florida is feeling the chill. The only area of the country that is warm right now is the desert Southwest and the Pacific coast. Temperatures out west are already climbing into the 60s, 70s, and in some cases the 80s and 90s. Meanwhile, Huntsville, Alabama will only reach 43 degrees today. Most of the Midwest is stuck in the teens and 20s. Winter has made a dramatic comeback even if it is only temporary. And here is something that a lot of people do not realize. When you have freeze conditions this far south, the agricultural impact is enormous. Farmers across Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and northern Florida have been dealing with early spring planting. Fruit trees in the southeast are already blooming. Peach orchards in Georgia, strawberry fields in Florida, blueberry crops across the Gulf Coast, all of them are now exposed to potentially damaging freeze temperatures. A single night of hard freeze can destroy millions of dollars worth of crops. So if you are a farmer or a gardener in the southeast, take action tonight. Cover your plants. Bring sensitive vegetation indoors if possible. Run water on your citrus trees if you have them. This freeze is serious and the damage window is tonight through Wednesday morning. Now here comes the first twist. There is an Alberta Clipper system diving down from Canada tonight and into tomorrow. This Clipper is looking more aggressive than initially forecast. It is going to bring a period of light to moderate snow across the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, all getting hit. This Clipper is going to push accumulating snow across the state of Minnesota into Wisconsin, into the eastern half and central areas of Iowa, and eventually it is going to dive all the way down through the entire state of Illinois tonight and into the overnight hours. By tomorrow morning, Wednesday, this Clipper could survive all the way down into Indiana and Kentucky. The models are showing some heavier snow bands developing across Kentucky, which is notable because this system was not expected to be this strong. We are talking about a few inches of snow on top of whatever is already on the ground. Indianapolis could pick up a ½ inch to an inch. Chicago, same thing. And here is the part that is going to surprise a lot of people. Snow showers could develop as far south as Huntsville, Alabama again. Yes, again. Northern Alabama could see snow flurries for the second time in just a few days. Nashville, Tennessee, and all of Kentucky are in the zone for light snow accumulation Wednesday morning. Now, do not go anywhere, because here is what happens next. And this is the part I promised you at the 5-minute mark, the real story of the second half of March. After this clipper pushes through by Wednesday night and Thursday, something remarkable is going to happen. The weather pattern is going to flip, and I mean completely flip. That massive ridge of high pressure that has been building over California, Arizona, and Nevada, it is about to become a wall, a blockade. Think of it as a giant dome of warm air that is going to sit over the western United States and act as a barrier to any major storm systems trying to cross the Rocky Mountains. And what this means is that for the next 3 to 4 days after Thursday, the severe weather threat across the United States drops to essentially zero. The Storm Prediction Center has no risk areas posted, no thunderstorms in the forecast for Thursday, no thunderstorms forecast for Friday. Saturday, potential too low. Sunday, potential too low. Monday, still nothing. We are looking at nearly a full week with no significant severe weather threat anywhere in the country. For those of you who have been on edge from the last storm system, you can breathe. You are safe, at least for now. But while severe weather takes a break, the temperatures are about to go absolutely haywire. And this is where it gets really interesting for hundreds of cities across America. Let me walk you through this heat wave because the numbers are staggering. Starting Wednesday, the desert Southwest enters extreme heat territory. Phoenix, Arizona is looking at highs near 100 to 105 degrees. Tucson could reach 100 degrees. Las Vegas, Nevada is forecast to hit 100 degrees. Palm Springs, California could soar past 105. Areas of Southern California, the Inland Empire, Riverside, San Bernardino, they are looking at temperatures 15 to 20 degrees above normal. Yuma, Arizona could touch 110 degrees, 110 degrees in March. These are temperatures that normally do not arrive until late May or June. We are running a full 2 months ahead of schedule in the desert. Los Angeles will be in the 80s and possibly the low 90s. San Diego in the 80s. Sacramento climbing into the mid-80s. Fresno pushing toward 90. Bakersfield could approach 95. Redding, California in the mid-80s. Even San Francisco, which is normally cool and foggy, will be well above average. Now here is where the heat wave gets even more dramatic. By Thursday, the warmth starts spilling over the Rockies and into the central United States. Dallas, Texas is going to see record-breaking highs. Fort Worth, same story. Fort Smith, Arkansas could challenge daily records. Oklahoma City will be surging into the upper 70s and low 80s. Wichita, Kansas climbing fast. Amarillo, Texas jumping into the 70s. Denver, Colorado could see temperatures 20 degrees above normal. Albuquerque, New Mexico in the 80s. El Paso, Texas pushing toward 90. And then Friday. Friday is going to be one of the most remarkable temperature days of the entire year. We are forecasting close to 100 daily record-breaking high temperatures across the country on Friday alone. Let me say that again. Nearly 100 records broken in a single day. Kansas City, Missouri will be well into the 80s. That is not a typo. 80s in Kansas City in the third week of March. Omaha, Nebraska in the upper 70s to low 80s. Des Moines, Iowa surging into the 70s. Minneapolis, Minnesota could be in the 60s or even approaching 70. Sioux Falls, South Dakota in the 70s. Bismarck, North Dakota in the 60s. And remember, some of these same cities were in the teens and 20s just days ago. We are talking about temperature swings of 40 to 60 degrees in less than a week. That is a weather roller coaster unlike anything most people have ever experienced. Saturday continues the heat parade. St. Louis, Missouri in the 80s, Nashville, Tennessee climbing into the upper 70s, Memphis, Tennessee in the low 80s, Little Rock, Arkansas in the 80s, Birmingham, Alabama bouncing from snow to near 80 degrees in less than a week, Atlanta, Georgia in the mid to upper 70s, Charlotte, North Carolina warming up nicely, and the Gulf Coast is going to be feeling it too. Houston, Texas in the mid 80s, San Antonio, Texas in the upper 80s, New Orleans, Louisiana going from freeze warnings to near 80 degrees. Jackson, Mississippi in the low 80s. Mobile, Alabama, same story. Now the West Coast continues to bake. Portland, Oregon will be above average. Seattle, Washington climbing into the upper 50s and 60s, which is warm for the Pacific Northwest in March. Boise, Idaho in the 60s and 70s. Salt Lake City, Utah in the upper 60s to 70s. Reno, Nevada approaching 80. Every single one of these cities is going to be running well above their normal March temperatures. But here is the catch, and this is the part you absolutely need to hear. The Northeast is the one region that is going to be left out of this warmth party. If you live in Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, Hartford, Providence, Portland, Maine, Burlington, Vermont, Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, or anywhere in the northeastern corridor, you are going to hang on to below-average temperatures through most of this period. The Northeast has a stubborn trough, a dip in the jet stream that is keeping cold air locked in place. Temperatures in Boston will be in the 30s and 40s. New York City similar. Philadelphia might break into the 50s by the weekend, but nothing close to what the rest of the country is experiencing. And here is why that matters. This temperature contrast between the warm air surging into the central states and the cold air anchored over the Northeast is going to become very important by next week, because when you have that kind of temperature gradient, that kind of clash between warm and cold air masses, you set the stage for storm development. And that brings us to the most critical part of this entire forecast. Do not miss what I'm about to tell you, because this could directly affect your safety and your plans for next week. Around Monday, March 24th, that massive ridge of high pressure over the west is going to start weakening. It has been acting as a shield, blocking storm systems from crossing the Rockies, but once it weakens, the door opens, and the first storm systems are going to start making their way over the northern Rockies. Montana and Idaho will be the first to see the change. We may start to get some storm development over the northern tier of the country by Saturday and Sunday of this week. But these storms are going to track well to the north, mostly impacting Canada rather than the lower 48 states. However, once we get into early next week, around Monday or Tuesday, March 24th and 25th, the first weak storm system should make its way over the Rockies and into the central United States. This could bring some showers and thunderstorms, maybe a few strong to isolated severe storms, but I do not think this initial system is going to be the big one. Think of it as a warm-up act. The main event, the one I am watching most closely, is the period around Wednesday, March 26th through Thursday, March 27th. This is the time frame where the synoptic setup is pointing toward the return of large-scale storm systems over the United States. The models are hinting that significant troughing will return, and with all of that warm, moist air that has been building up across the plains in the south, there will be plenty of fuel for storm development. I am talking about the potential for a significant severe weather event. Multiple rounds of thunderstorms, the possibility of tornadoes, widespread damaging winds, large hail, heavy rainfall that could lead to localized flooding. And depending on exactly how the storm system tracks, there could even be another round of snow on the backside for the northern tier. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is 8 to 10 days out. Details will absolutely change. The exact track of the storm, the exact timing, the exact areas most at risk, all of that will become clearer as we get closer. But the overall pattern is becoming more confident. The end of March is shaping up to be active, possibly very active. If you live in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, or anywhere in the eastern two-thirds of the country, you need to be monitoring the forecast closely as we approach March 25th through March 28th. Here is what I want you to do right now. Make sure you have a way to receive severe weather alerts. Check your phone settings. Make sure emergency alerts are turned on. If you have a weather radio, test it. Make sure the batteries work. Know where your safe room is in your house. Basement, interior room on the lowest floor away from windows. Have a plan for your family. Know where you will go if a tornado warning is issued. These are simple steps that could save your life. Let me tell you a quick story that puts all of this in perspective. Back in March of 2023, we had a similar pattern where a late-season cold blast was followed by a rapid warm-up. That temperature contrast fueled a devastating tornado outbreak that killed dozens of people across Mississippi and Alabama. The Rolling Fork, Mississippi tornado was an EF4 that leveled an entire town. That event happened because warm, moist Gulf air collided with a potent storm system coming off the Rockies, and the atmosphere went into overdrive. Now, I am not saying that exact scenario is going to repeat. Every weather event is different. But the ingredients that are setting up for late March 2026 have some uncomfortable similarities to patterns we have seen before that produce significant severe weather. That is why preparation matters. That is why staying informed matters. You do not want to be caught off guard. And I want to address something that I know a lot of you are thinking. Some of you are probably saying, well, the last storm underperformed, so maybe this next one will too. And that is a dangerous line of thinking. Here is why. Every severe weather setup is independent. The fact that Sunday's outbreak underperformed has absolutely no bearing on what happens next week. The atmosphere does not have a memory. It does not keep score. Each storm system develops based on its own unique combination of ingredients. So please, do not let the outcome of the last event influence your preparation for the next one. When forecasters and the Storm Prediction Center start raising alarms, take it seriously every single time. Because the one time you do not, that could be the one time it fully verifies and people get hurt. Now let me give you the complete breakdown for every major region of the country over the next 7 to 10 days. And I am going to go through this methodically so that no matter where you live, you will know exactly what to expect and when. Starting with the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, Boise, Idaho, Eugene, Oregon, Salem, Oregon, Spokane, Washington, Tacoma, Washington, Olympia, Washington, Bellingham, Washington, Medford, Oregon, Bend, Oregon, Corvallis, Oregon, Albany, Oregon, Astoria, Oregon, Kennewick, Washington, Yakima, Washington, Wenatchee, Washington. You are going to see some rain over the next 48 hours as energy moves through the Pacific Northwest. This is nothing unusual, just typical Pacific moisture moving onshore. The Cascade Range will see snow at the higher elevations, which is actually great news for the snowpack. Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount Bachelor, all of the ski resorts will benefit from this refresh of mountain snow. At lower elevations, temperatures will be above average, generally in the 50s and 60s for the coast and the valleys. Portland will be in the upper 50s to low 60s. Seattle, similar. Eugene in the upper 50s. These are comfortable spring temperatures for the Pacific Northwest and a welcome change from the winter gray that has dominated for months. Boise, Idaho will be notably warmer, climbing into the 60s and potentially the 70s by the end of the week. Spokane, Washington will warm into the 50s and 60s. No severe weather threat anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. No major storms. Just a quiet, slightly warmer than normal stretch of weather heading into the weekend. By next week, temperatures should remain above average as the ridge continues to influence your area from the south. The Pacific Northwest is in one of the best weather setups it has had all year. If you live in Seattle or Portland and you have been waiting for a stretch of pleasant weather, this is it. Get outside. Enjoy it. The mountains will still have snow for skiing and snowboarding, but the valleys will feel like spring has finally arrived. One important note for the Pacific Northwest. As we get into late March and early April, the fire season in the eastern parts of Washington and Oregon starts to become a concern. The combination of early warmth, drying grass, and gusty winds can create fire conditions even this early in the year. If you live east of the Cascades, be mindful of fire restrictions and avoid outdoor burning until conditions moderate. Now, the northern Rockies and northern plains, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. Helena, Billings, Great Falls, Missoula, Boise, Casper, Cheyenne, Fargo, Bismarck, Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island, North Platte, Scottsbluff, Kearney, Norfolk, Nebraska, Minot, Williston, Dickinson, Miles City, Haver, Sheridan, Gillette, Rock Springs, Riverton. You are in the transition zone. Cold air is still lingering today, but temperatures are going to surge dramatically by Thursday and Friday. And let me paint a picture of just how wild this temperature contrast is right now. In the Dakotas today, there is a temperature gradient across the state that is almost unbelievable. The western part of South Dakota near Rapid City is in the 60s, while the eastern part near Sioux Falls is in the teens and 20s. That is a 40 to 50 degree difference within the same state on the same day. You could literally drive a few hours and go from needing a heavy winter coat to being comfortable in shorts and a t-shirt. Bismarck could go from the 20s today to the 60s by Friday. Sioux Falls from the teens to the 70s. Omaha from the 20s to the upper 70s or even 80. Fargo from the single digits to the 60s. This is one of the most extreme temperature swings in the country, and it is happening in the span of just 3 to 4 days. Enjoy the warmth because a cold front will arrive Sunday and drop temperatures back down, though not nearly as cold as what we are experiencing right now. By next week, watch for that developing storm system around the 25th through the 27th. The northern plains could see thunderstorms, possibly severe, depending on the storm track. The Central Plains and Southern Plains, Kansas City, Wichita, Topeka, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Lubbock, Amarillo, Midland, Odessa, Abilene, Corpus Christi, Shreveport, El Paso, Springfield, Missouri, Joplin, Lawton, Norman, Stillwater, Enid, Bartlesville, Muskogee, McAllister, Waco, Temple, Killeen, Tyler, Longview, Texarkana, College Station, Bryan, Lufkin, Nacogdoches, Laredo, Brownsville, McAllen, Harlingen, Victoria Bay City. You are about to experience a remarkable heat wave, and I cannot stress enough how unusual this is for March. Temperatures will climb into the 70s by Thursday, the 80s by Friday, and some locations will push into the low 90s by Saturday. Dallas and Fort Worth could see record-breaking highs with temperatures approaching or exceeding 85 degrees. That is a temperature you would normally expect in early May, not the third week of March. Oklahoma City will be well into the 80s. Tulsa pushing past 80, Wichita, Kansas in the mid-80s, Topeka in the low 80s. Down in Texas, the heat will be even more impressive. Houston climbing into the mid-80s with humidity making it feel even warmer. San Antonio in the upper 80s, possibly touching 90. Austin in the mid to upper 80s. Waco in the upper 80s. Corpus Christi near 90 with the Gulf breeze barely taking the edge off. Lubbock in the upper 70s. Amarillo in the upper 70s, which is remarkable for the Texas Panhandle in March. Even Brownsville and McAllen near the Mexican border will be in the upper 80s to near 90. Laredo could touch the low 90s. This warmth will persist through the weekend before a cold front brings some relief Sunday into Monday. But even behind that cold front, temperatures will remain well above where they were earlier this week. We are not going back to the 20s and 30s. The cold front might drop temperatures 10 to 15 degrees, bringing most areas back to the 60s and 70s, which is still above normal for late March. But the bigger story for your region is next week. The Central and Southern Plains are ground zero for the potential severe weather event around March 25th through the 28th. This is the heart of Tornado Alley. When warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico surges northward across the plains and collides with a powerful jet stream diving down from the Rockies, the result can be explosive. Supercell thunderstorms capable of producing large tornadoes, destructive hail the size of baseballs or larger, and straight-line winds exceeding 100 miles per hour are all within the realm of possibility in this type of pattern. I am not saying all of that will happen. I am saying the ingredients are there for it to happen. If you live in this part of the country, you need to be paying close attention to forecast updates as we get into next week. Have your safe room identified, have your emergency kit ready, keep your phone charged and weather alerts turned on. The upper Midwest and Great Lakes, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Rochester, Minnesota, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Quad Cities, Davenport, Rockford, Peoria, Springfield, Illinois, Champaign, Bloomington, Illinois, Fort Wayne, South Bend, Terre Haute, Evansville, Lansing, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, Michigan, Muskegon, Holland, Traverse City, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Wausau, Appleton, Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, Janesville, Kenosha, Racine, Dubuque, Waterloo, Sioux City, Mason City. Today and tomorrow are cold and snowy. That Alberta Clipper is going to drop a few inches of snow across this region tonight and tomorrow. And for those of you who just dug out from 30 to 40 inches of blizzard snow, I know the last thing you want to hear is more snow. But the good news is, this Clipper is a lightweight compared to the monster blizzard that just hit. We are talking about a coating to maybe 2 or 3 inches at most. Enough to be annoying, but not enough to cause major problems. Chicago could pick up a ½ inch to an inch. Indianapolis similar. Detroit will see lake effect snow bands throughout the day, which could locally enhance totals in the snowbelt areas east of the lake. Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, and the lakeshore communities will get the heaviest lake effect bursts. Cleveland and Akron will see on and off snow showers. Columbus might see a dusting to a ½ inch. Milwaukee and Madison dealing with the Clipper directly tonight with a few inches possible. By Thursday, temperatures start to recover. The snow stops. The sun comes out, and the atmosphere begins its dramatic transformation. By Friday and Saturday, you are looking at temperatures in the 60s and 70s across much of the upper Midwest. Chicago could hit 70 degrees. Let me say that again. Chicago could hit 70 degrees by Friday or Saturday after receiving snow just 2 days earlier. That is the definition of a weather roller coaster. Minneapolis in the 60s, possibly approaching 70. Milwaukee in the 60s. Indianapolis in the upper 60s to low 70s. Des Moines pushing 70. Cedar Rapids in the upper 60s. The Quad Cities warming to near 70. This is stunning warmth for mid-March, especially coming just days after blizzard conditions dumped feet of snow across parts of this region. Some of that snow is going to melt rapidly, which could lead to localized flooding, especially in areas that received the heaviest snowfall. Storm drains could be overwhelmed. Low-lying roads could flood. Basements that stayed dry all winter could suddenly take on water as the snowpack melts and the ground, still partially frozen, cannot absorb the runoff. If you have a sump pump, test it now. Make sure it is working before you need it. Watch for that. By Sunday, a cold front knocks temperatures back down, but not dramatically. We are talking about a drop from the 70s back to the 50s. That is still well above where we are today. Early next week brings another potential storm system that could bring showers, thunderstorms, and possibly severe weather to this region. The upper Midwest is typically on the northern edge of severe weather setups in late March, but when strong storm systems develop, this region can absolutely see tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. The period around March 26th and 27th is the one to watch for the Great Lakes and upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Louisville, Lexington, Charleston, West Virginia, Richmond, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Roanoke, Harrisburg, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Wilmington, Delaware, Dover. Snow showers and flurries are possible today and tonight, especially at higher elevations and across West Virginia and Western Virginia. That clipper will brush this area tomorrow morning with some light snow. By Thursday, things calm down. Friday and Saturday bring warming temperatures, though you will not warm as dramatically as the Plains states. Expect 50s and low 60s by the weekend. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore should be in the 50s by Friday. Louisville and Cincinnati warming into the 60s. Next week, watch for the developing storm system. The Ohio Valley is often in the crosshairs when storms come off the plains, so the period from March 25th through the 28th is important for your region. The Northeast. New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, Hartford, Providence, Albany, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Portland, Maine, Burlington, Concord, New Hampshire, Bangor, Worcester, Springfield, Massachusetts, Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, Trenton, Newark, Jersey City. This is the one region where winter is not letting go. Below average temperatures will persist through the rest of this week and possibly into next week. The stubborn trough over the Northeast keeps cold air in place. Boston will be in the 30s and 40s, New York City in the 40s. Snow showers are possible today and tonight from the lake effect and from the departing storm system. The Clipper will clip the edges of the Northeast by Thursday with some light snow, particularly upstate New York and New England. By the weekend, there is a slight chance of another weak system bringing some snow from New York back into Kentucky, but the overall risk is low. Temperatures will slowly moderate into the 50s by early next week, but you are going to be the last part of the country to warm up. The 8 to 14-day outlook keeps the Northeast below average through the end of March. Spring is coming, but it is taking its sweet time getting to you. The Southeast. Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, Nashville, Memphis, Birmingham, Huntsville, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, Orlando, Savannah, Charleston, South Carolina, Columbia, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Greenville, Augusta, Macon, Tallahassee, Pensacola, Biloxi, Hattiesburg, Jackson, Mississippi, Montgomery, Dothan, Mobile. Today is cold, unusually cold. Freeze warnings are up across a huge section of the Southeast. Atlanta is below freezing this morning. Charlotte is frigid. Nashville is in the 20s. Even Florida is feeling the chill with 30s and 40s across the northern part of the state. Freeze warnings extend all the way through central Georgia and into South Carolina and North Carolina. This cold will persist through Wednesday morning, when freezing temperatures will again be possible as far south as central Georgia. But then the flip happens. By Thursday and Friday, temperatures start climbing. The warm air from the west will begin spilling over the southern Appalachians and into the Piedmont and the coastal plains. By Saturday, Atlanta will be in the mid to upper 70s, Nashville pushing toward 80, Memphis in the low 80s, Birmingham rebounding from snow earlier in the week to near 80 degrees, Charlotte in the 70s, Knoxville in the low 70s, Chattanooga in the upper 70s, Greenville, South Carolina in the 70s, Columbia, South Carolina warming nicely, Augusta, Georgia in the upper 70s, Macon, Georgia in the low 80s, Montgomery, Alabama in the upper 70s. Dothan, Alabama similar. Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami will be in the 80s, which is closer to normal for them. Orlando in the low 80s. Daytona Beach in the upper 70s. Gainesville, Florida, warming to the upper 70s. Pensacola in the upper 70s. Tallahassee bouncing back to the upper 70s. Even the North Carolina coast, Wilmington, Outer Banks, Morehead City, will be climbing into the 60s and 70s by the weekend. The warming trend will continue into early next week across the southeast. But keep your eye on the late March storm system. The southeast, particularly the Tennessee Valley and the Gulf Coast states, is vulnerable to severe weather when major storm systems come through. The corridor from Mississippi through Alabama, Tennessee, and into Georgia is sometimes called Dixie Alley because of the frequency of tornadic storms that track through this region. March 25th through the 28th is the window to watch. If you live in this part of the country, this is the time to review your severe weather plan. Know where your nearest tornado shelter is. If you do not have a basement, identify the most interior room on the lowest floor of your home. A closet, a bathroom, under a stairwell. These are the safest places to be when a tornado warning is issued. If you live in a mobile home or manufactured housing, you need to have a plan to get to a more substantial structure. Mobile homes offer virtually no protection from tornadoes. Know where the nearest community shelter is and how long it takes to get there. This is not something you want to figure out when the sirens are going off. The desert Southwest, Phoenix, Tucson, Las Vegas, Albuquerque, El Paso, Palm Springs, Yuma. You are about to experience temperatures that belong in late May or June. Phoenix is forecast to reach 100 to 105 degrees this week. Tucson near 100. Las Vegas hitting 100. Palm Springs could soar past 105. Yuma could approach 110. Albuquerque in the 80s. El Paso in the upper 80s to low 90s. These are record-breaking temperatures, 15 to 25 degrees above normal for this time of year. Heat advisories and excessive heat warnings are already posted across parts of the Southwest. If you are in this region, stay hydrated. Check on elderly neighbors. Do not leave children or pets in parked cars. This heat is no joke even if it arrives earlier than usual. California. Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, Sacramento, San Jose, Fresno, Bakersfield, Riverside, San Bernardino, Oakland, Long Beach, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Stockton, Modesto, Redding, Visalia, Oxnard, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Chico, Merced, Palmdale, Lancaster, Victorville, Temecula, Murrieta, Escondido, Carlsbad, Oceanside, El Centro, Napa, Sonoma, Santa Rosa. The entire state is running well above average. Los Angeles will be in the 80s, possibly low 90s in the valleys. The San Fernando Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley could be even hotter, San Diego in the 80s. Sacramento climbing into the mid-80s. San Francisco will be notably warm for the Bay Area, possibly reaching the 70s, which is remarkable for this time of year when the Bay Area is usually in the 50s and 60s. Fresno pushing toward 90. Bakersfield approaching 95, Redding in the mid-80s, the Inland Empire, Riverside, and San Bernardino will be especially hot with temperatures potentially reaching the upper 90s. Palmdale and Lancaster in the Antelope Valley could hit the upper 90s or even touch 100. The wine country Napa and Sonoma will be in the 80s. The Central Valley from Stockton to Bakersfield will be uniformly hot with temperatures well into the upper 80s and 90s. This warmth will persist through the weekend before gradually moderating early next week as the ridge weakens slightly. Fire weather conditions are a concern across Southern California and the foothills. Red flag warnings could be posted if winds pick up. The combination of extreme heat, low humidity, and any wind creates the perfect recipe for rapid fire spread. If you are in California, this is not the week to let your guard down on fire safety. The Gulf Coast. Houston, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Mobile, Pensacola, Biloxi, Corpus Christi, Galveston, Beaumont, Lake Charles, Lafayette, Gulfport, Pascagoula, Panama City, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Houma, Thibodaux, Slidell, Covington, Mandeville, Hattiesburg, Laurel, Meridian. The cold snap has you in its grip today, but it is temporary. Temperatures along the Gulf Coast are running 20 to 30 degrees below normal this morning. That is extraordinary for a region that is used to mild winters and early springs. Many of you woke up to frost on your windshields and ice on your bird baths. Some of you may have even seen your breath for the first time in months, but relief is coming fast. By Thursday, temperatures will be back in the 60s across most of the Gulf Coast. By Friday, the 70s return. And by the weekend, temperatures surge into the upper 70s and 80s. New Orleans goes from freeze warnings today to near 80 degrees by Saturday. That is a temperature swing of nearly 50 degrees in just 4 days. Houston climbing into the mid-80s by Saturday and Sunday. Corpus Christi approaching 90. Galveston back in the mid-70s with onshore breezes keeping it slightly cooler than inland areas. Mobile, Alabama rebounding to the upper 70s. Pensacola, Florida similarly. Panama City Beach and the entire Emerald Coast will be pleasant and warm by the weekend, making it a great time for those early spring beach visitors. The Gulf Coast will remain warm through early next week. However, this region needs to be on alert for the potential severe weather setup around March 25th through the 28th. The Gulf Coast often provides the moisture source for major storm systems, and with the Gulf of Mexico temperatures running above average, there will be plenty of fuel available if a storm system develops. When a strong storm system moves across the southern plains and taps into Gulf moisture, the result can be explosive thunderstorm development along and ahead of the cold front. Tornadoes, damaging winds, and flooding rainfall are all possible in this scenario. The Gulf Coast states, from Texas to Florida, need to be watching the forecast closely as we approach next week. Now here is your complete timeline so you can plan your week. Today, Tuesday, March 18th. Cold and snowy across the east. Snow showers from the Great Lakes through the Ohio Valley and into the southeast. Warm and getting hotter across the west and southwest. Alberta Clipper developing tonight over the upper Midwest. Wednesday, March 19th. Clipper drops snow across the Midwest Ohio Valley and potentially as far south as northern Alabama. Another round of flurries possible in Tennessee and Kentucky. Cold continues in the east. Heat intensifies in the southwest with temperatures approaching and exceeding 100 degrees. Thursday, March 20th. Clipper remnants brush the northeast with light snow. Cold air begins to moderate across the central states. The desert southwest continues to bake. Record-breaking highs expected from Phoenix to Las Vegas to Southern California. Friday, March 21st, the warmth surges eastward across the plains. Nearly 100 daily temperature records expected to fall. Kansas City in the 80s, Denver well above average. The southwest continues record heat. The northeast remains stubbornly cold. Saturday, March 22nd, heat wave peaks across the central states. 80s from Dallas to Kansas City to St. Louis. 70s into the Midwest. The southeast warms into the 70s and 80s. The southwest sustains extreme heat. The northeast begins to slowly moderate. Sunday, March 23rd. A cold front moves through the plains, dropping temperatures. But even behind the front, temperatures remain above average for most areas. The Gulf Coast stays warm. The southwest begins to slowly cool from peak heat. Monday, March 24th. High pressure brings another shot of cold air to the northeast. Could be a little snow with it. The rest of the country remains seasonably warm to above average. Watch for the first storm system trying to develop over the Rockies, Tuesday, March 25th. The first storm system moves into the central United States. Showers and thunderstorms develop across the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Some storms could be strong. This is the beginning of the active weather window, Wednesday, March 26th through Thursday, March 27th. This is the period of highest concern for significant severe weather. A major storm system could bring widespread thunderstorms, potential tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, and heavy rainfall from the plains eastward through the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and into the southeast. The exact details will be refined as we get closer, but the pattern signals are pointing toward a serious event. Friday, March 28th through the end of March. Additional storm systems are possible as the pattern remains active. Below average temperatures could return to parts of the central and eastern United States behind these storm systems. But remember, as we push deeper into late March and early April, even below average temperatures are warmer than what we experience in January and February. Spring is advancing even if winter tries to make a few more cameo appearances. Now let me circle back to the heat wave because the records that are about to fall deserve some extra attention. And I need you to understand just how unusual this is. We track daily record high temperatures at thousands of weather stations across the United States. On a normal March day, you might see a handful of records broken here and there, maybe 5 or 10 across the entire country. What we are about to see this week is on a completely different level. Starting today, Daily record-breaking high temperatures begin falling across Los Angeles and Phoenix. Some of these records have stood for decades. Some have stood for over a century, and they are about to be shattered. Tomorrow, the record-breaking expands to 50 to 60 cities near the Rockies and along the West Coast. Thursday, it pushes into Dallas and Fort Smith. Friday, nearly 100 records broken in a single day with the heat wave peaking across the plains. Saturday and Sunday, records continue falling along the Gulf Coast and across the Southwest. Even by next Monday, we are still looking at a dozen record-breaking temperatures. Over the course of this entire event, we could see hundreds of daily temperature records shattered across the western and central United States. Some of these records will not just be broken, they will be obliterated by 10 degrees or more. That is how extreme this heat dome is. So what does all of this mean for you? Here is the bottom line, and I want to make this as clear as possible so you can plan your week with confidence. If you are in the eastern half of the country, today through Wednesday is cold and potentially snowy. Bundle up, layer your clothing, wear a hat and gloves if you are going outside. Watch for icy conditions on the roads, especially in the southeast where you are not used to these temperatures and where road crews may not have the salt and equipment that northern cities have. Protect your plants and outdoor plumbing if you are in the freeze zone. Disconnect garden hoses. Open cabinet doors under sinks on exterior walls to let warm air circulate around the pipes. Let faucets drip overnight if temperatures drop below 25 degrees. These simple steps can prevent burst pipes, which can cause thousands of dollars in damage. By the end of the week, warmth returns and the heating bill goes down. But next week, stay alert for the severe weather potential around March 25th through the 28th. If you are in the western half of the country, enjoy the warmth but respect the heat. Stay hydrated. Drink water before you feel thirsty. Limit outdoor activity during peak heat hours in the desert Southwest, which is typically between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. If you must be outdoors, take frequent breaks in the shade. Wear light-colored, loose-fitting clothing. Watch for signs of heat exhaustion, including dizziness, nausea, headache, and rapid heartbeat. If you experience these symptoms, get to a cool place immediately and drink water. Check on elderly neighbors who may not have air conditioning or who may not realize how hot it is getting. Watch for fire weather conditions, as the combination of heat, low humidity, and wind creates dangerous fire weather. Do not park on dry grass. Do not throw cigarette butts out of car windows. Do not use power equipment near dry vegetation. One spark can start a wildfire that burns thousands of acres in these conditions. If you are in the Northeast, patience. Spring is coming. It is just going to take a little longer to arrive in your neck of the woods. Below average temperatures will persist through most of this period, but you will warm up eventually. Every year, the Northeast hangs on to winter the longest. It stays chilly well through April and into early May. This year is no exception. And for everyone, the period around March 25th through March 28th is the one to watch. That is when the next significant storm system has the highest probability of developing. I will be tracking this closely and providing updates as the models come into better agreement on the details. I want to emphasize something important. I am not trying to scare anyone. Weather is weather. It is part of life in America. We deal with blizzards, heat waves, tornadoes, and everything in between. The goal here is to make sure you are informed and prepared, not frightened. Knowledge is power. When you know what is coming, you can make smart decisions to protect yourself and your family. And speaking of being prepared, let me go through a few more cities that I know many of you are watching from based on the comments I have been getting. Reno, Nevada in the 70s this week. Salt Lake City, Utah climbing into the upper 60s and 70s. Colorado Springs, Colorado well above average. Pueblo, Colorado approaching 80. Grand Junction, Colorado in the 70s. Bozeman, Montana, you will see a dramatic warm-up from the teens to the 50s and 60s. Spokane, Washington in the 50s and 60s. Rapid City, South Dakota, going from the 20s to the 60s in a matter of days. Pierre, South Dakota, same dramatic swing. Topeka, Kansas in the 80s by Friday. Springfield, Missouri in the upper 70s. Joplin, Missouri in the 80s. Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 80s. Shreveport, Louisiana warming into the upper 70s. Little Rock, Arkansas in the 80s. Pine Bluff, Arkansas similar. Paducah, Kentucky warming from the 30s to the 60s. Evansville, Indiana, same trend. Springfield, Illinois recovering from the Clipper snow to the 60s by the weekend. Peoria, Illinois similar. Rockford, Illinois warming up nicely, South Bend, Indiana shaking off the snow and climbing into the 50s and 60s. Fort Wayne, Indiana same, Terre Haute, Indianapolis, Bloomington all warming through the week. Down south, Savannah, Georgia going from frost this morning to the mid-70s by the weekend. Augusta, Georgia similar. Macon, Georgia same story. Columbus, Georgia warming up. Valdosta, Georgia. Waycross, Georgia. All of southern Georgia shaking off this cold blast and returning to spring warmth by the weekend. Tallahassee, Florida, from the 30s this morning back to the upper 70s. Gainesville, Florida. Ocala, Florida. Daytona Beach, Florida. All of Central and North Florida will be back to normal by Thursday and Friday. South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, you stay warmest through this whole event since the cold blast barely reaches you. In the Carolinas, Wilmington, North Carolina, warming to the 60s and 70s by the weekend. Fayetteville, North Carolina, similar. Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Durham, all of the Piedmont warming gradually but staying cooler than the Deep South. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina, Hilton Head, all warming through the end of the week. Up in the northern tier, Marquette, Michigan, you are still buried under massive snowfall from the blizzard. Temperatures will moderate, but you have a long melt ahead of you. Traverse City, Michigan, Sault Ste. Marie, the Upper Peninsula, Houghton, Hancock, Iron Mountain, Escanaba, Petoskey, Gaylord, Alpena. You are looking at a slow warm-up with potential for localized flooding as all of that snow starts to melt. Some of you received 30 to 40 inches from this blizzard alone, and there was already snow on the ground before the storm hit. We are talking about snow depths of 3 to 4 feet in some areas. That is an enormous amount of water locked up in that snowpack. When it starts to melt, and it will start melting rapidly with temperatures climbing into the 50s, all of that water has to go somewhere. Duluth, Minnesota dealing with feet of snow on the ground and temperatures that will swing from below zero wind chills to the 50s and 60s in a matter of days. This rapid melt could cause issues. Be aware. The same goes for International Falls, Bemidji, Brainerd, St. Cloud, and all of northern Minnesota. The snowpack is extraordinary and the warm-up is going to be aggressive. Let me also talk about the impact on travel this week because I know a lot of you have plans. If you are driving through the Midwest today or tomorrow, be extremely careful. Blowing and drifting snow will reduce visibility. Roads could be icy, especially bridges and overpasses. The Clipper system tonight will add a fresh coating of snow on roads that may have just been cleared. Interstate 90 across Wisconsin and Minnesota could be impacted. Interstate 80 through Iowa and Illinois could see slippery conditions. Interstate 70 through Indiana and Ohio may have snow-covered stretches. If you are flying, airports in Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis, Indianapolis, and Cleveland could see delays and cancellations today and tomorrow due to the snow and low visibility. By Thursday, travel conditions improve dramatically as the cold retreats and the warmth surges in. For the weekend, travel across the plains in the south should be excellent. Clear skies, warm temperatures, and calm winds are the forecast for most of the central and southern United States from Friday through Sunday. This is a great weekend to get outside and enjoy the early taste of summer that Mother Nature is delivering. Just remember that sunburn is possible. The sun angle in late March is strong enough to burn, especially at the intensities we are going to see this week. Wear sunscreen even if it does not feel like summer yet. Green Bay, Wisconsin, Appleton, Oshkosh, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Wausau, Stevens Point, Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Janesville, Kenosha, Racine. All of Wisconsin buried under the blizzard snow and now facing a rapid warm-up that will cause significant snowmelt. If you live near rivers or in flood-prone areas in Wisconsin, Minnesota, or Michigan, pay close attention to river levels over the next week. The combination of massive snow on the ground and temperatures surging into the 50s and 60s could lead to rapid snowmelt flooding. Rivers like the Wisconsin River, the Fox River, the Wolf River, the Chippewa River, the St. Croix River, and dozens of smaller tributaries are all at risk of rising rapidly as this massive snowpack starts to melt. The National Weather Service may issue flood watches or warnings for some of these river basins over the next 7 to 10 days. If you live in a flood zone, have a plan. Know your evacuation routes. Move valuables to higher ground if flooding becomes imminent. This is the kind of slow-developing flood threat that can catch people off guard because it does not happen with a dramatic thunderstorm. It happens gradually as the snow melts day after day after day. Let me also touch on some cities in the Mountain West that I know people are asking about. Bozeman, Montana, Missoula, Kalispell, Helena, Butte. All of Montana will see a significant warm-up this week. You will go from winter conditions to spring-like temperatures in a matter of days. Jackson, Wyoming, Cody, Wyoming, Casper, Cheyenne, Laramie. Wyoming will warm substantially by the end of the week, though the mountains will retain their snowpack for now. That is actually good news for water supply as the slow melt from mountain snowpack feeds rivers and reservoirs through the spring and summer. Idaho Falls, Idaho. Twin Falls, Pocatello, Coeur d'Alene, Lewiston. Idaho mirrors Montana with a dramatic warm-up coming. Sun Valley will transition from winter recreation to spring conditions rapidly. And for the folks down in the Four Corners region, Flagstaff, Arizona will be notably warm for its elevation. Sedona will be gorgeous this week with temperatures in the 70s and 80s. Durango, Colorado, Farmington, New Mexico, Gallup, New Mexico, Moab, Utah, St. George, Utah could approach 90, Cedar City, Utah in the 70s, Page, Arizona near 80. The entire Four Corners region is going to feel like late April or May rather than mid-March. Now, I promised you a teaser for the next update, and here it is. Those storm systems developing around March 25th through the 28th, the early model signals are suggesting that this could potentially be one of the more significant late March severe weather setups in recent years. The combination of a strong jet stream, clash of air masses, abundant Gulf moisture, and a potent storm system is the recipe for a major severe weather event. Now, there is still a lot of uncertainty at this range. Models will change, the exact details will shift, but the overall pattern is trending in a direction that demands attention. Let me also mention a few more areas that I have not covered yet because I want to make sure nobody is left out. Anchorage, Alaska, and Fairbanks, Alaska. Your weather pattern remains largely independent of what is happening in the lower 48. Typical late winter conditions persist with some moderation expected as we head toward the equinox. Honolulu, Hawaii, you remain in your own world with trade wind showers and temperatures in the upper 70s and low 80s. Beautiful as always. Back in the lower 48, let me cover a few more cities I know people are asking about. Amarillo, Texas, climbing from the 40s into the upper 70s by Friday. Lubbock, Texas, similar. Midland, Texas, approaching 80. Odessa, Texas, same story. Abilene, Texas, in the upper 70s. Waco, Texas, in the low 80s. Tyler, Texas, warming to the upper 70s. Texarkana, warming nicely. Longview, Texas. Lufkin, Texas. College Station, Texas. All of East and Central Texas will be in the upper 70s to mid-80s by the weekend. Moving north, Fargo, North Dakota, from the single digits to the 60s in less than a week. Grand Forks, North Dakota, same dramatic swing. Minot, North Dakota. Williston, North Dakota. The entire state of North Dakota is going to experience one of the most extreme temperature reversals in the country. Aberdeen, South Dakota. Watertown, South Dakota. Mitchell, South Dakota. Huron, South Dakota. All of South Dakota will feel like a completely different season by Friday compared to today. Over in the east, Scranton, Pennsylvania. Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Allentown, Pennsylvania. Reading, Pennsylvania. Erie, Pennsylvania, still dealing with lake effect snow today. Youngstown, Ohio. Akron, Ohio. Canton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio. All of northern and central Ohio will transition from snowy and cold to milder conditions by the end of the week, though the northeast corner of Ohio near Erie and the lake will warm more slowly. Down in Virginia, Lynchburg, Danville, Bristol, Blacksburg, Charlottesville, Fredericksburg. Western Virginia could see some snow today and tonight, particularly at higher elevations. By the weekend, temperatures will moderate into the 50s and 60s. The Shenandoah Valley will be pleasant by Saturday. In New England, beyond the major cities, let me mention Manchester, New Hampshire, Nashua, New Hampshire, Keene, New Hampshire, Brattleboro, Vermont, Montpelier, Vermont, Rutland, Vermont, Lewiston, Maine, Augusta, Maine, Bar Harbor, Maine, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Martha S. Vineyard, Nantucket. All of New England remains locked in the cold pattern through the end of this week and potentially into early next week. You are the last holdout against spring, but your turn will come. It always does. The 8 to 14-day outlook suggests the cold grip loosens slightly as we push toward April, even if it does not fully release. And for those of you along the Interstate 10 corridor from Jacksonville, Florida, through Tallahassee, through the Panhandle, through Mobile, through New Orleans, through Baton Rouge, through Lake Charles, through Beaumont, through Houston, through San Antonio, all the way to El Paso, you are on one of the most dramatic weather seesaws in the country this week. You go from freeze warnings tonight to temperatures approaching or exceeding 80 degrees by the weekend. That is a swing of 40 to 50 degrees in less than 5 days. Make sure your air conditioning units are ready to go because you are going to need them sooner than you expected. One more thing I want to mention before we wrap up. For all of you in Tornado Alley and Dixie Alley, the traditional severe weather season is just ramping up. March, April, and May are the peak months. And with the pattern we are seeing where the jet stream is active and Gulf moisture is abundant, this spring could be particularly busy for severe weather. I am not saying that to alarm you. I am saying it because preparation saves lives. Take a few minutes this week while the weather is quiet to review your severe weather plan. Make sure your family knows what to do. Check your emergency supplies. Replace those flashlight batteries. Stock up on water and non-perishable food. Make sure your weather radio has fresh batteries and is programmed to your county. Download a reliable weather app on your phone. These small actions take 5 minutes, but they could make all the difference when severe weather strikes. In my next update, I am going to have a much clearer picture of exactly which cities and states are most at risk from this late March storm system. I will have updated model data, specific timing windows, narrowed down to 6-hour blocks, and I will tell you exactly what types of severe weather are most likely for your area. Whether it is tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, or flooding rainfall, I will break it all down city by city. I will also have the latest on how much snowmelt flooding we can expect across the upper Midwest and whether any river flood warnings get issued. So make sure you do not miss that update. If you found this forecast helpful, share it with someone you know who needs to see it, especially if they live in the areas that could be impacted by the late March storms. Share it with your family members, share it with your neighbors, share it with your coworkers. Weather awareness is a community effort, and the more people who are informed, the safer everyone will be. And again, please drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. I read every single comment, and I want to make sure I am covering your area. If you are in a location I did not mention today, tell me. I will make sure to include it next time. Whether you are in a tiny town in West Texas, or a suburb outside of Philadelphia, or a rural community in Montana, your weather matters, and I want to cover it. Winter is making its last stand right now across the eastern United States. But this cold blast is living on borrowed time. The heat is coming, the warmth is building, and the second half of March is going to deliver some of the most dramatic weather of the entire year so far. Record-breaking cold followed by record-breaking heat, followed by the potential for a significant severe weather outbreak. This is why weather in America is never boring. This is why millions of people tune in every single day to find out what Mother Nature has planned next. And right now, she has quite a show in store. Stay safe out there. Be prepared. Check on your elderly neighbors during both the cold snap and the heat wave. Make sure your pets have shelter and water. And I will see you in the next update when we will have a much sharper picture of what those late March storms have in store.